Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us for the last 7 days. I'm Brian Spellman.
And I'm Andrew Sparrow, joining us from a bright, sunny, tropical United Kingdom today.
I can see Andrew is delusional already, but today is December 22nd. Wow, it's almost Christmas. This year it's gone by faster. We're going to spend the next few minutes talking about news over the last week and how it impacts our world of PLM, CAD, MES, MOM, MFG, and all the other three-letter acronyms.
Yeah, we're going to be talking aerospace, automotive, high-tech, people, and culture.
Coming up, Blue Origin, Cerberus is looking to buy United Launch Alliance.
And Bumax receives fastener order for prototype reusable rocket.
JSX intends to acquire 322 hybrid electric aircraft.
Lufthansa Group orders Boeing 737 MAX and Airbus 220 jets.
Ampere's hybrid electric demonstrator completes a 12-hour flight.
Lockheed Martin is awarded a $260 million.
Wow. Boeing is expanding capacity for advanced Patriot missile seeker production.
Russia uses rainy day fund to keep aerospace sector flying.
Tesla removes stock-based compensation.
Toyota aims to put a 1,000-kilometer Lexus EV on the road by 2026.
Electric pickup trucks.
Chinese car makers increase investment in Mexico, and they have a plan.
Apple wants AI to run directly on your iPhone.
Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 Flip 5 added to self-repair program.
Apple ramps up Vision Pro production.
And AI plays Labyrinth. Ready, set, let's go.
So Blue Origin, Cerberus, is looking to buy United Launch Alliance. Jeff Bezos, Blue Origin, and private equity firm Cerberus are among companies that have shown interest in buying the rocket company. Textron has also expressed interest in the purchase. Lockheed Martin and Boeing currently have equal ownership in ULA, which makes one of the launch vehicles that is used for Amazon's satellite internet network. ULA has faced delays in the development of its new rocket Vulcan Centaur, which is going to carry Astro Robotics' Peregrine lunar lander in January. And Blue Origin's BE-4 engine currently powers that spacecraft's first stage. Private equity firms have been showing interest in space companies that have exposure to government contracts, which, as we all know, is currently dominated by SpaceX. 21 launches to SpaceX and ULA worth about $2.5 billion, with the Boeing Lockheed Martin joint venture receiving 11 missions valued at $1.3 billion. Why do you guys think that companies are looking to buy ULA?
I mean, I think you just mentioned it. SpaceX, let's be honest, they are dominant these days in the whole launch systems. Greg, we were talking about, I mean, you can highly personalize your payload with SpaceX. That's never been the case with NASA. So they're really out in front. So I guess you've got a chance, you've got choices when you want to start up a business to go compete with the SpaceX. You can start organically, hire people, hope for the best, don't understand the business, or you can go out and buy a business that's already out there, already doing it, potentially has government contracts in place and market accessibility, of course. So it gives them a wider channel base to go for. They've also developed a lot of the technology already, so they've made a lot of the mistakes. They've learned by them. So there's a lot of really good reasons. I just hope the deal they've done with ULA keeps those innovators and those senior managers in the business rather than losing that drive, impetus, and innovation. So hopefully that's the way they're going to go, and they could be a serious competitor to SpaceX.
Yeah, you're saying they're just going to try to bypass a lot of those startup headaches that have already been figured out.
Yeah.
Greg, as Andrew just, I think, mentioned a little bit here, but what does this mean for the existing workforce when a company buys another company?
Yeah. Good question. I mean, HR is going to be busy. If this goes through, HR is going to be busy for the next couple months, maybe the next couple years, right? This is a pretty complex acquisition. And so managing that integration between systems, between people and teams is going to take some serious effort. I mean, from a people perspective, you're going to have to quickly identify the top talent and figure out who's staying and who's going. And it's never a fun conversation to have, but definitely important to the sustainability of the business, right? And then I think the biggest thing for people who are on either side of the coin is addressing those concerns about job security and career opportunities and changes in policies. I mean, you're going to see a spike in turnover regardless. That's always, with these things, it's always going to be part of the conversation. So ensuring that clear communication is in place is going to be key.
You bet. Good points, Greg. Good points. Meanwhile, Boomax receives fastener order for prototype reusable rockets. So talking launch and the whole space race, it's all about reusable rockets. So French spacecraft designer and manufacturer Opus Aerospace has chosen to use premium screws for Swedish specialist fastener manufacturer Boomax for its new suborbital rocket and future vehicles designed to send satellites into space. Big stuff. I cannot think of a sector that needs more quality control and traceability. I mean, you've got passengers into space. You've got this new stress of doing that whole thing. So for me, it's all about MES-MOM systems, getting that QC traceability up and running. So guaranteeing this for Boomax screws, implementing and enforcing those rigorous quality control measures throughout the manufacturing process is going to be critical. It's going to involve a lot of inspections, testing, and verification processes. So well done, Boomax, but now the work really gets started.
Yeah. JSX intends to acquire 322 hybrid electric aircraft. So Texas-based public charter jet service JSX is purchasing these from Electra, Aura Aero, and Heart Aerospace, which is boosting eco-friendly air travel. These acquisitions are supporting their goal of sustainable air services for small communities, regional areas, with the first aircraft delivery expected by 2028. We've had a lot of conversation over the last 6 weeks just around sustainable air travel. I know we chatted a little bit last time, Andrew, on this, but yep. Brian, Andrew, any thoughts? How is this influencing the product lifecycle?
Yeah, you're right. We've talked a lot about sustainable air travel, and I think a lot more coming in this episode about that as well. I know we've hit on the SAF, the sustainable air fuel as well, but I think this could really be a game changer because this aircraft you're talking about, the Electra eSTOL, is a low emission airplane designed to transport 9 passengers for 500 nautical miles with batteries that recharge in flight. So eliminating the need to add new ground infrastructure for the recharging portion, leverages this whole distributed electric propulsion and small turbine power generator to drive the electric motors that are actually on the wing. So it's pretty fascinating because this is a really innovative design that's had to touch probably every area of the product lifecycle, starting with, how are you designing it, manufacturing it, looking at quality, safety, regulations, and everything. It's kind of daunting to try to imagine it all together, but I think it's really cool.
I think it's practical as well. We were talking last week when you were playing hooky, Brian, Greg, that the electric aircraft was really good in theory, but the size of the batteries, the weight of the batteries, it was kind of just working against the whole aviation side of things. So this hybrid approach makes a lot of sense, especially if you can recharge as well as you go in, then just keeps reducing the size of that battery that's needed. So makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't really researched, but I'm assuming that they're recharging with solar power, which I guess, you're above the clouds anyway. So this is makes perfect sense here.
You mean in the clouds?
You're in the clouds. Speaking of in the clouds, Lufthansa Group is ordering a lot of planes. They're ordering 80 planes, 40 of which are the Boeing 737-8 MAX and 40 Airbus A220s, with 60 more purchasing options for the Boeing, and with 20 options to buy more 220s and 40 options to buy more Airbus 320s. So they're buying a lot of planes. That's going to be about $9 billion at list prices to be delivered between 2026 and 2032.
For want of a better pun, this sector is just taken off, isn't it? Really, I mean, the amount of aircraft being sold, purchased right now is pretty unprecedented. There we go. Meanwhile, Ampere's hybrid electric demonstrator completes a 12-hour flight. So here we go again with hybrids. So in a groundbreaking achievement, Ampere, a leading hybrid electric aircraft systems company, showcased the remarkable endurance of its electric eel demonstrator aircraft in a historic 12-hour flight near Camarillo, California. The flight, covering 1,375 miles, set a new record for hybrid electric aircraft endurance, with over 2 hours of fuel and battery reserves remaining at the end. Ampere CEO Kevin Nurtka expressed pride in shattering the boundaries of electric flight, emphasizing the commitment to transformative performance. The successful mission marks the culmination of a year filled with achievements spanning Canada, Alaska, Arizona, and California, showcasing Ampere's dedication to sustainable aviation technology.
Yeah, you said it right there, Andrew, with this is a year filled with achievements. This is more of what I think we were just talking about with Lufthansa, where they've had to take this whole new way of doing things and integrate it in the whole PLM cycle. So it looks like we've got a few companies who've been able to do this, maybe taking we saw what Tesla did to the electric vehicle market. Looks like space is the next frontier for that.
You bet.
Nearly 1,400 miles is also huge. I feel like it's 1,100 miles because I've driven it from Nashville to Denver and Denver to Nashville. So it would be a quick jump. I'd be excited about that, probably over an autonomous vehicle, but that's a story for another day. In other news, Lockheed Martin has received a $262 million contract to prepare for F-35 retrofits in 2024, enhancing their capabilities for U.S. military and allied forces. This investment is signifying a commitment to maintaining the F-35's technological edge and supporting the long-term readiness of global defense forces.
There's a lot of this retrofitting going on, both in commercial and defense sectors. I got to say that whole MRO, MES blended solution of disassembly and refit is it's interesting. It's getting busier and busier. We're seeing a lot of activity in that space. A lot of fun.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot in that space. In fact, Boeing just broke ground on a 35,000 square foot expansion for its Huntsville factory that's producing Patriot Advanced Capacity 3, or the PAC-3 Seeker. This is going to increase their annual production capacity by more than 30% to meet what's a growing air and missile defense needs around the world. They just delivered their 5,000th PAC-3 Seeker. Since 2021, Boeing has been awarded more than $2 billion in contracts for Seeker production and to develop the next generation Seeker. They've invested already $100 million into Huntsville since 2010. They already opened up a 9,000 square foot expansion earlier this year, and they're investing in the state's higher education incentives with $415,000 in grants for scholarships, for technology labs, and for supporting workforce development, where they hope folks will be working for them. So this is a lot of growth.
Yeah.
What challenges did they need to be considering here?
Yeah, this is great news. I've got to say, really is ambitious growth. Key challenges for me have got to be first ensuring your integration of your expanded production facility back into their PLM system. ERP goes without saying, you've got to pull that down, but that back into your PLM for your digital thread, pulling through that product data is essential for efficiencies, real time. And second, maintaining quality control standards. We're in aviation again, amid accelerated production. So can you keep quality with speed? Brian, we've been in conversations several times on automotive as well as aerospace on this conversation. And that's going to be a big one that they've got to be pulled through. So speed, quality together. Love to come and help.
Yeah, with speed, quality, and keeping things flying, what was this news about Russia's rainy day fund?
So Russia uses a rainy day fund to keep aerospace sector flying. Let me explain. Russia has handed out more than 12 billion in state subsidies and loans to keep its aviation sector afloat since Western sanctions over Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Depending on foreign-made aircraft, Russia faces the daunting task of developing its aviation industry along with domestically sourced parts while buying aircraft from foreign lessors to avoid more of its fleet being seized. Since then, Russia has spent 1.09 trillion rubles. I don't know, what's that, like $12.50, supporting
I think it's 12 billion.
Okay. You
Close.
never know with those rubles. They're a bit up and down. Yeah, supporting the civil aviation industry, including aircraft manufacturing and financial assistance for airlines. The importance of a reliable air industry is particularly crucial for Russia, both for transporting its people and goods across its enormous territory, and to bolster Moscow's narrative that sanctions have had but a minimal impact. Yeah,
It
right.
sounds like they've had more than a minimal impact, because we know that Airbus and Boeing already halted supplies of services and I think of spare parts back in 2022, and dropped the maintenance support for Aeroflot, which is one of Russia's airlines.
As it was used to be called Aerodrop.
Yeah. I do think, voters are headed to the polls in 3 months over there. The collapse of an airline could apply reputational and electoral pressure on Putin, who's running again for president. So
we'll see. They have polls? Really?
So he's running let's just again. Keep driving right along here. Always with the good transitions here. Greg, what you got for us?
That's perfect. Tesla has reportedly removed stock-based compensation for employees in their annual performance reviews this year, despite Musk's previous emphasis on Tesla's competitive employee compensation. The change is certainly going to impact salary adjustments and merit-based stock grants. I think the decision does raise questions about its impact on Tesla's employee recruitment and retention amidst an already challenging year with price cuts and reduced gross margins.
Yeah. Are they really still offering stock? Don't you do stock with a startup? I think 20 years old Tesla. I'm surprised they're still giving it, and clearly they're feeling the same way, I guess.
Yeah. What is this going to do for, if you're expecting to get stock options and you think they're going someplace, all of a sudden you hear that's not happening? So is this going to affect their worker retention, or maybe people wanting to, move to other companies?
Yeah.
And even the response of customers who are, big Tesla fans, right? Like what would their response be just to how the workers are being treated?
I don't know if it'll impact consumers that are buying a Tesla. it's certainly something that I hope that there's communication so that it's not coming as a surprise to anyone, right? We've all seen Christmas Vacation where Chevy Chase opens up the Jelly of the Month Club, and that's his bonus of the year, right? It's great, phenomenal movie, but I'm hoping that there's some communication that
I would never have called it a phenomenal movie, but keep on going.
that's fine. That's fine. I do think that Tesla is forward thinking enough in what they do and who they are.
Yeah, I know. Yep.
Most employees, it's probably not going to impact them too much
But
because
let's be honest, a lot of those Tesla employees are targets for other EVs because they've learned how to go at scale, manufacture, etc. So they must have another way to keep hold of them, I'm sure.
Yeah, very much so.
Yep. So next up, Toyota aims to put 1,000 kilometer range. What's that? That's like 675, 700 miles, something like that. Lexus EV on the road by 2026. That's big because I don't know if you guys saw, Toyota's been holding back for a little while on bringing out an EV. They did bring out an RZ, which had a mileage range of like 200 miles, which wasn't very impressive, and then a recharge of about an hour. So they were kind of holding back a little bit, I think, given how advanced they are technology-wise. But they said they plan to unveil a Lexus concept car with roughly 1,000 kilometer range and deliver it by 2026. So the LFZC concept car, which debuted at the Japan Mobility Show, uses prismatic high-performance batteries, try saying that when you're worse for wear, that almost double the range of the conventional EVs. The key to achieving these breakthroughs is parts minimalization and reduction across the board, including smaller, more efficient batteries with more power and more range, Toyota's Simon Humphreys said. Let me jump on down. Toyota has committed to having battery EVs account for 100% of global sales of the luxury brand by 2035. So they ain't holding back any longer. That's a huge shift from the traditional auto market in a world where folks are starting to question the environmental and cost benefits of EVs. There you go. What does it all mean?
One neat part about this is that they are, of course, adding an AI technology they're calling Butler that is supposed to help identify preferences that drivers may not be aware of themselves. I'm not sure how I feel about a car that's going to tell me what I don't know that I need, but it's interesting at least. Maybe a little snarky Butler kind of talking back. This is marking a pretty significant stride in Toyota's strategic shift towards EVs, emphasizing the advanced battery technology. And they, I guess, seem to have nailed, what's happening with the product lifecycle management and their meticulous approach to everything they're doing across the board. What do you think the biggest thing, Andrew, is that they're doing here in this whole PLM idea?
I mean, the single biggest thing for me is trying to instill, we try to instill with all of our customers as well, is to achieve that breakthrough with their Lexus LFZC concept car is a comprehensive and effective approach to design for excellence. So DFX. DFX encompasses various methodologies such as design for manufacturing, design for assembly, and design for reliability, amongst others. So that whole DFX approach towards minimalization, innovation of battery technologies, simulation and modeling, cross-functional collaboration, et cetera, et cetera. I think that is a big thing, and they are one of the forerunners for the whole DFX approach to automotive manufacturing.
Yeah. And the introduction of those groundbreaking products and processes can certainly improve and boost employee morale and pride in their work, right? Reinforcing the importance of involving employees in those processes, recognizing their contributions. I mean, this is something that Tesla can definitely lean on, right? Going back to their conversation, and Toyota is also leaning on as well. So pretty excited to see this from a culture standpoint.
Yep. So, and everybody kind of knows that Tesla also, again, has just released the Cybertruck to a mixed reception. Did you all know that they weren't the first all-electric truck, guys?
Yeah, a couple of years ago.
Yep. Well, so it was exactly back in 2021, Rivian made automotive history by becoming the first automaker to deliver an electric pickup to the consumer market. Not sure how many there were. Maybe it was just one. What do you make of that, guys?
Well, I think that we know that scalability is a huge hurdle in terms of the longevity of a company. I mean, your profit, your viability, your existence, right?
Yep.
And I think we've talked about how Rivian's actually done some pretty good strides towards that recently, in more recent news. So it is going to be interesting to see what happens, especially as this electric vehicle or hybrid market, because there's kind of, who knows which way we're actually going for what people want to buy now. But it's interesting seeing all that come into play with scalability too.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it just reinforces what we've been talking about from a people perspective, the importance and impact of creating that environment where innovative thinking is nurtured and risks are intelligently taken, and employees are motivated, but also given permission to challenge that status quo. I think it's important. So producing the first electric pickup truck against giants like Tesla and GM and Ford is a testament to the power of cultivating that culture.
Yeah, back when Rivian rolled that pickup off their assembly lines, the Rivian founder tweet, and it was called Tweet back then, tweeted after months of building pre-production vehicles, our first customer vehicle drove off production line in Normal. And he said, our team's collective efforts have made this moment possible. Can't wait to get this in the hands of our customers. And they started this whole battlefront, I think, with Tesla for the first EV. And it is a hot battlefront now, where Rivian, Tesla, and even Toyota is getting in on this. But there's now been a slowdown in EV sales growth in the past year, but a surge in hybrid over the last year. The head of Toyota this year said there's a buzz of electrification in the industry has somewhat mainstreamed hybrids, and it's had an awakening. But a year ago, as EV sales rose and hybrid sales slumped 65%, Musk said it was time to move on from hybrid cars. They're just a phase. So there's definitely a battle happening here between the idea of hybrid, electric, what are customers going to want, and what this means for companies as far as, because they're spending lots of money to make these approaches, whether they're making hybrid, whether they're making electric. So it's interesting to see where this is going to go.
I think it is a phase, but I still think it's got a little way to go with it, hasn't it? I mean, range anxiety, battery efficiency's got to come up, infrastructure's got to come up. So I think a lot of people knee-jerk is to go, oh, I go battery EV, at least to get my 50 miles a day, my 25 miles a day. And then if I want to, out of a battery, and if I want a long journey, I go to an ICE flip over. So I think it's got a little way to go yet, those hybrids.
Yep.
Yeah. Joseph sent me an article on EVs this morning. Chinese car makers are increasing their investment in Mexico. They've got a plan. Speaking of
Joseph sent you an article, but you know what? I think he's right here. Hey, Joseph.
There we go.
Perfect time to join, guys. Thank you very much, Greg.
Joseph. Yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, well, what is the China's strategy, guys? So it looks like China is targeting Mexico to evade U.S. sanction with a focus on the electric vehicle sector, considering it a weak link in the sanctions framework. Yeah, so it looks like the new investments or the manufacturers that are trying to take advantage of this, including MG, Honda, SAIC, BYD, and Chery Automobile, are making substantial investments in Mexico, signaling their intent to bypass the U.S. sanctions. So right now, the specific investments, guys, MG plans to build a factory in Mexico worth $1.5 billion to $2.5 billion. BYD is investing hundreds of millions of dollars in a factory, and another Chinese company plans to build an EV battery factory worth in $12 billion. So looks like it's growing.
You're saying that China was using nearshoring to try to find a way to pay basically less money in sanctions and regulations and everything to get cars into the US, which brings up the point that we know that regulations are a big deal and they can be very expensive, and that companies have to consider requirements management. Seems like in this case, they considered it by trying to bypass it. But it is definitely, that's a huge cost to companies, is what happens with what requirements do we have and what regulations do we have to deal with?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think if I'm in the US, inevitably they're going to be selling those in Mexico. but they're also going to be selling them into US. But to be honest, I think your first reaction is when you hear of China is, am I going to get the quality? I'm going to get cheap, but am I going to get the quality? I didn't realize MG was actually a Chinese brand. I'm driving one at the moment as a rental. Yeah, quality issue. Interesting. It works. Definitely gets from A to B, but not a lot of luxury in there. But anyways, so yeah, that'll be a big issue for me. And that's, of course, get those mess moms up and running, get them doing the traceability, quality control, quality gates in place to make sure they can deliver.
Yeah. Now that Joseph is here, I'm just going to dive right into our technology segment. That was a quick transition to the technology segment because technology is like ready to go right there. And Greg's loving my attempts at jokes today. So speaking of technology, Apple is now wanting to run AI directly on the hardware instead of on the cloud. So Apple posted a paper on December 12th, but it actually caught wider attention just this past Wednesday when a site for AI researchers showcasing their work called Hugging Face highlighted the paper. The paper tackles the challenges of efficiently running large language models that exceed the available DRAM capacity by storing the model parameters on flash memory, but bringing them on demand to DRAM. Basically, Apple is looking to bring advanced AI technology to smartphones, beginning with large language models, which is paving the way for effective use of LLMs, large language models, with limited memory devices. Because we know that things like ChatGPT run on huge data centers with a lot of computational power, which is not necessarily what you're going to find on your iPhone. So it's interesting because these competitors, the competitors for Apple rely on cloud-based services, and Apple's saying, let's just do this directly on their iPhones. What do you think the advantages of processing queries on the user's device are going to be, Joseph?
Yeah, well, I think you're gonna have a smarter Hey Siri, could be something like that. Because processing queries on the user device instead of relying on cloud-based services to result in a quicker responses from languages models, even without a cloud connection. So additionally, from a market perspective, Brian, this strategy could set Apple apart from the competition by providing a more agile and secure user experience. By privacy policy or things like that, processing all the data in your own device could be better. But also, other brands, Brian, are competing with new strategies. Here is an example. Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5, Flip 5 added to self-repair program. So looks like Samsung expanding self-repair program demonstrates a commitment to sustainable manufacturing, covering more countries and flagship products. The initiatives emphasize the user experiences, responsible consumerism, efficient PLM, and a circular economy by actively involving users in sustainable practices and prioritizing repairability. Samsung highlights a significant stride in promoting comprehensive PLM strategies and a progressive approach to manufacturing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a really interesting idea because they're taking something that we've seen a lot in, aerospace, where the user has to be involved with the maintenance of the part, right? And there's part they're planned into the product lifecycle. Whereas I think when we buy a phone, we don't necessarily think, oh, we got to be part of the responsibility for this life cycle of this phone. So it's neat that Samsung is really focusing on responsible consumerism, bringing the consumer into that PLM idea and really taking a look at the full process. I think it's a fascinating idea.
Yep.
Speaking of fascinating ideas, you may have heard of the Vision Pro, which is going to be launched in February. Apple is ramping up production for this new headset and at its facilities in China. And they want to have these customer units ready by the end of January with the retail debut planned for February. This Vision Pro is going to come at about $3,500, but it looks pretty cool. We'll see how popular that ends up being. The iPhone maker has actually been forced to make major cuts to production forecast due to design complexities. So that brings up some questions about scalability and design. What are your thoughts, Andrew?
Yeah, they've obviously got some scalability issues, having already openly admitted they were going to cut production forecasts. Clearly a case for advancing technologies, more automation, in my opinion. Implementing a state-of-the-art robotics, automated processes will help them, I'm sure, reduces your errors, increases overall output of these very, very high quality units. So they've done it before. Hopefully they got to do it again. Maybe they need a little help from us.
It's true. Well, let's take it back a couple years. I'm sure. Do you guys remember the game Labyrinth, where you had the marble and you had to navigate the marble through? I think it's like
the game or the movie.
That's true. That's a good thought. If you
Very
haven't
Bowie.
watched the movie recently, I would highly recommend
Long hair.
rewatching. That's right. That's right. But AI robot Cyber Runner has mastered the Labyrinth game, not the movie, the game, achieving a record time of, I think it's 14 and a half seconds, which just blows human capabilities out of the water. Developed by ETH Zurich, the AI model used model-based reinforcement learning actuators for physical interaction with the game, and then also an overhead camera for visual feedback. You can see it here. Can't quite see the camera, but this demonstration is really showcasing AI's potential in solving real-world physical problems through vision, physical interaction, and machine learning. I think it's insane. Look how quick. I mean,
yeah.
done.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you said, Greg, I'll pay you $1 million to do that, I couldn't do it. I could try and try and try, but there's no way that I could do that. What I think that there's going to be a lot of implications here, right? What implications do you guys think this has on physical stuff that isn't necessarily dangerous, but needs finesse, right?
Yeah, I mean, that dexterity is going to have massive implications in automotive manufacturing. You can go to PCBs. Still a lot of PCB manufacturing is done with the hands. I mean, you've got that dexterity that's going to do it. It's a huge impact.
Yeah.
There's lots of areas where I mean, seeing how fast it did the Labyrinth right there, I was thinking, surgeries where you actually have to have fast response times.
Yep.
This could probably help with the whole self-driving algorithms, perhaps. But it's interesting because this is fascinating and also kind of a little scary when you can see in real time something learning, not just learning how to code better, basically, but learning how to maneuver something better is really, fascinating and scary. I think, speaking of the movie The Labyrinth, if y'all remember the Goblin King played by the great David Bowie, he had a quote that said, "So the Labyrinth is a piece of cake, is it? Well, let's see how you deal with this little slice." So what's next, y'all? What is next?
Yeah, I have a comment over here, because, for example, in the industry, when you're trying to manufacture a PCB, for example, you have the example of the product that you want to do, right? And then in NPI processes, you design how you're going to run everything. But imagine how can it be if you apply AI to define the best or the more efficient process to do it. So
Absolutely.
you're gonna make shorter all the processes for this.
Mhm. And that is coming pretty soon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yep.
Speaking of coming pretty soon, I would say that we're going to see you all next week, but that's not true because next week is Christmas week. So I think a lot of us are going to not necessarily be in the office. Some of us might be flying, but not in the office, right? So I just want to say we'll see you all in the new year. Which, 2 weeks from now, another fantastic news of what we call that, the last 14 days instead of the last 7 days.
I guess
We'll see.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us, everybody. We hope you have a fantastic holidays, whatever you're celebrating, and a happy new year.
Happy holidays.